June 1st, the first day of the Atlantic hurricane season.
This roof just tore off.
Experts predict 12 named storms.
We lost everything. I'm scared.
6 hurricanes, 2 intense hurricanes.
My wife, can't find her body. She gone.
WNBF News presents Surviving the Storm.
Thank you for joining us for this special presentation of WNBF News. I'm Michael Maley.
And I'm Dana Evans. You may notice things look just a little bit different around the WNBF newsroom tonight. We're preparing for the 2009 hurricane season, and we hope everyone along the Grand Strand and the PD is doing the same now.
That's right. Over the next hour, we're going to show you how to make sure that your family survives the storm. We're also taking your questions live on WNBFnews.com. So on air or online, WNBF News has you covered.
We start our coverage tonight with a look back at the storm that changed everything for the Grand Strand. You may remember Hurricane Hugo. WNBF News reporter Kyle Granger joins us live in the studio to tell us about its power.
Well, Michael and Dan are along the Grand Strand. The southern part of the Grand Strand was the hardest hit area from the storm. Evidence of the power of these storms, and tonight a look back at living through the storm.
Jack Thompson has photographed Myrtle Beach's history since the 1950s, including many pictures of hurricanes and Hurricane Hugo. With buildings destroyed, things were not where they were supposed to be. Lives were shattered.
And I began to walk up the beach with my camera, photographing what seemed to be a nightmare.
Thompson stayed in Garden City through the storm and even tried to get to the coast in the middle of the night, only to be stopped by the water that had been pushed onto land.
The winds were howling, almost blowing the car this way or that way, and palmetto trees, limbs, trash cans and all flying by the windshield. It's a wonder my windshield didn't get knocked out.
And here's the Garden City Pier before the storm. Here it is after. It's after the storm that may have been the most trying time for him and the thousands of others who lived along the coast trying to get home.
You could almost hear the cry of people on the other side of the waterway not being able to cross the bridge to get in to see the damage.
And Thompson closed our conversation about Hurricane Hugo with this.
But some of the lasting memories of Hugo is that nobody had water, nobody had electricity. Coffee you could have sold $10 a cup if you could find it. And those situations lingered for several days after Hugo. I may say so, it was a terrible public situation of people depressed and actually disgusted.
Memories of the last big storm for the Grand Strand. Live in the studio tonight, Kyle Granger, WNBF News.
When tropical weather threatens, WNBF News and the entire WNBF News network shift to keep you safe. I'm WNBF Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Rob Hatchell. The WNBF News Storm Team, it's all about this, the bottom line when it comes to tropical weather. And we're here to make sure that you have the information you need. Now, this is a graphic you'll more than likely see a lot of during our coverage of any storm that may threaten our area. It's what you need to know. Now, as a storm approaches, we'll be here around the clock to update you on the storm's location, of course. We'll be using everything from satellites and radar to also we're looking at the satellite imagery here from space to give us a good idea as to what those storms are doing, where they're moving. We can actually use enhanced satellite images to get a good sense as to if the storm's intensifying. Of course, you'll get those coordinates as well. Now, we're also looking at Hurricane Hunter data too. That'll give us flight level winds, surface winds, and pressure data. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit with both Katie Morgan and Jamie Arnold in the upcoming hour. And then also we'll look at WNBF Storm Team Doppler radar too to keep you informed. Now, of course, we'll also let you know exactly where or what we'll see from the storm itself as those hazards come our way. But more importantly, the biggest thing to understand through all of this is to know that you need to have that plan. And we'll, of course, have more on that to help keep you or help you survive the storm.
Rob, thank you. And WMBF News, of course, just doesn't have your answers on air. We're also answering your questions online, too. In fact, log on to WMBFnews.com right now, and you can talk with our Storm Team meteorologists like Rob and Katie and Jamie, as well as members of our WMBF News team. We'll be live right here online for you until 8 o'clock tonight, so don't forget to log on and ask your questions and tell us some of your concerns. It's all right here, only on WMBFnews.com.
You just pray that it doesn't take everything you got.
Losing your home, your business, or even your life is the grim reality of tropical weather. But there are ways to prepare. As WMBF News anchor Trey Paul found out, having the right kind of insurance is one of the most important things that you can do.
This is why you need to have insurance. These are pictures of what Hurricane Hugo did to Archie Biggs' home on Murrells Inlet.
It floated at about 6 or 8 feet till it hit a tree and set it down flat on the ground.
On the inside, let's just say it was worse.
Mud and dead fish and stank like the devil inside the house. It was just an awful experience to come down here.
Mr. Archie had a basic homeowner's insurance policy that covered his contents. But after Hugo, he also needed policies that covered wind, hail, and flooding. Thankfully, he did.
You may need as many as 7 or 8 different types of policies depending on your personal situation.
And if you don't, that's where Allison Dean Love with the South Carolina Insurance News Service says you can get in trouble. Mr. Archie knows what she's talking about.
Unfortunately, several people in this neighborhood at the time didn't have good insurance, and so they ended up building back with their own money.
A lot of times people don't think about their insurance until after a disaster happens.
So here's what you need to know now and what you need to do first.
The best thing you can do is to have a good up-to-date home inventory. That helps you decide how much insurance you need, and it really comes in handy in case you need to file an insurance claim.
That's because your insurance company is going to need a list of the things you lost. Next, understand your deductible and be prepared to pay it. Experts say most who live in this area will pay a percentage deductible, which will be higher around the time of a hurricane. And make sure you have adequate coverage, especially if you've added a room.
If you don't have the right money to cover it, what will you do?
Remember, you cannot buy insurance once a storm watch or warning has been posted, and it takes 15 days to get wind and hail insurance in place. And renters, listen up, you need insurance too.
Your landlord's insurance does not cover your personal items.
If you haven't done these things, you still have time. And you better believe Mr. Archie has already called his insurance company.
Don't want another one.
And who can blame him? You know, another thing Mr. Archie does is he puts up these hurricane shutters to prepare for a storm. Under a new law that passed 2 years ago, you can actually save up to 25% from your insurance company. And if you save the receipts on these purchases, you can also save some money on your state income tax. Now, also under that law, there's what's called a hurricane catastrophe savings account, which allows you to put aside money to pay off your deductible, which is state income tax free. It's just another way WMBF News is helping you reject the recession and survive the storm. Reporting in Murrells Inlet, I'm Trey Paul for WMBF News.
From the first signs of tropical weather to the aftermath, the WMBF News Network is keeping an eye on the storm, but we aren't the only ones. From tropical depressions to Category 5 storms, the hurricane hunters fly into the eye of the storm to gather information that we need. And I understand, Katie, that you actually got to speak with these men and women, didn't you?
Very lucky to do so. And, you know, they just had some amazing stories of all the different tropical storms, hurricanes that they've all flown through, as low as 5,000 feet at times. So really impressive to hear their stories. Actually, real calm through the storm for the most part, which was really neat to hear. But one of the most impressive and the most important was just how important the Hurricane Hunter aircraft is in gathering data.
It may not be a bird.
The belly is quite different than any aircraft around here.
But it's more than just a plane.
This big black dome is actually a radome on this aircraft.
It's a super plane designed to collect important data about tropical storms.
You can tell it looks a lot different than many airplanes you see out here. And that's because it is different. It's a special airplane. There's a lot of special equipment on board and sensors and data collectors that make this a flying laboratory.
This is one of 2 WP-3 Orion aircraft flown by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Its primary mission to track tropical storms.
We want to know where their storm is, what's it doing, and where it's going.
Besides tracking the cone of uncertainty, meteorologists have an equally important mission at hand. Using an aircraft full of radars and sensors, they analyze the storm.
Almost half the whole layer is sensors.
Up close and personal.
The most turbulent, most dynamic portion of flying through the storm is flying through the eye wall. You know, a fire hose stream blasted right at the front of the cockpit.
But outside the eye wall, the flight is quiet. while scientists dissect the storm.
Okay, just like if you have a pain in the stomach and they can't really rectify it right away at the doctor's office, he'll send you in for a test. It's usually like an MRI. So this P3 is like our MRI going into the hurricane.
On any given mission, scientists will deploy 25 to 50 drop-ons to gather as much information as they can.
Little drag chute comes out kind of to arrest its descent, to give it more time to storm as it descends down to the surface of the water. And the entire time it's out there, it's beaming up wind speed, wind direction, relative humidity, pressure and temperature, along with a GPS coordinate.
The data is sent to the National Hurricane Center, who relays the information to the media and becomes the public's first look at the storm's DNA. But scientists also use the same information to help them better understand tropical storms and ultimately create better forecasting techniques for the future.
It's important to realize that a satellite is only giving you a picture from the top down. Ground-based radar can only give you a picture from so far outward. We need to get an aircraft in there to find out what kind of effects we're going to feel at the surface, and you can only do that with an aircraft. So I don't think we're going to stop doing this anytime soon.
And the National Hurricane Director, Bill Reed, did say that in the future they are planning on using other unmanned aircraft. But as you can see, of course, getting an actual human meteorologist and pilots in the storm is real important. Rob?
All right, thank you, Katie. The WNBF Storm Team has an entire arsenal of tools at our disposal to provide you and your family with the most up-to-date information. WNBF Storm Team meteorologist Jamie Arnold joins us live from Myrtle Beach. Jamie, show us how the WNBF Storm Chaser will take us into the heart of the storm.
Well, Rob, the WNBF Storm Chaser absolutely decked out to provide you, the viewers, with the latest information, the latest on any conditions going on when a tropical system or a hurricane strikes. Now, we'll start you off here at the back, a full weather station here on the back of the WNBF Storm Chaser. That allows us to track the wind speeds, the wind gusts, the temperature, the humidity, anything you need to know across the area. Now, once you head inside the WNBF Storm Chaser, that's where things get a bit more technical. We do have a laptop set up inside, and that laptop actually serves several different purposes. With that laptop, of course, that's how we provide you a live view from inside the Storm Chaser. You're looking at the front of WNBF News right now, right out through the front windshield, and it is that webcam that allows us to show you exactly what is going on anywhere across the Grand Strand or the PD anytime a storm strikes. That way you stay out of harm's way, and we send you into the storm to see exactly what's going on. Now, that's a look at the WNBF Storm Chaser. However, we have other ways to show you what's going on when a storm threatens. Storm Team meteorologist Katie Morgan gave us an in-depth look at the hurricane hunters and how valuable they are to the National Weather Service and the National Hurricane Center. The data they provide are also important to the WNBF Storm Team. As part of our arsenal of weather technology, we have near real-time access to the data they collect on their flights. As the aircraft makes its pass through tropical storms and hurricanes, the data is relayed via satellite, making it possible for us to share that data with you. Some of the most critical data sent by the Hurricane Hunter aircraft are the flight level winds that tell us how strong the upper portions of the storm are. We also receive measures of the surface wind speeds, and finally we have access to the air pressure inside the storm. All of the data can then be clearly presented on television, allowing us to keep you up to date with every change within a storm. So between our access to data from the National Hurricane Center and the Hurricane Hunters and the WNBF Storm Chaser, we have several ways of taking you right inside the heart of any storm that threatens the area.
And I come here with my family with nothing, and hopefully everything will turn out all right for me.
When a hurricane moves in, it's time for people to get out. Evacuations can be a major undertaking, though, and one group is determined that there will be another way to leave the beach.
And if a hurricane moved towards the coast, a good deal of Myrtle Beach would actually be underwater. We'll take a look at where the water would go and tell you if your home would survive the storm.